Picture this, a forgotten plantation house in the misty Tennessee dawn, its foundations cracking like old bones. 3 men crawl into the damp darkness below, lanterns flickering against unseen walls. Then, a whisper, a child's voice, fragile as a prayer, speaking words from another world. But these aren't ghosts, they're alive, pale as death, eyes pleading for a mercy long denied. What divine judgment hid them there? Tonight, we descend into the abyss. In the shadowed heart of post-Civil War Tennessee, where the earth still wept from the blood of battles long silenced, the Harllo estate stood as a silent sentinel amid the rolling hills of Cumberland County. It was April 1876, and the air hung heavy with the scent of blooming dogwoods and the faint rot of decay, nature's way of reminding men that nothing escapes time's inexorable grasp. The Reconstruction era was unraveling like a frayed Confederate flag, its promises of equality dissolving into the mud of resentment and vigilante shadows. Federal troops had pulled back, leaving the South to its own devices, where white hoods roamed the night and former slaves navigated a precarious freedom that felt more like a chain reshaped than broken. Cumberland County, a patchwork of weary farms and ghosted tobacco fields, cradled the county seat of Crossville, a humble cluster of weathered buildings orbiting a stone courthouse that had seen more hangings than justice. Dirt roads snaked through the landscape, turning to treacherous quagmires after spring rains, isolating homesteads where families clung to survival. 6 miles southeast of Crossville, the Harllo estate sprawled across land once fertile but now exhausted, its soil leached dry by generations of relentless cultivation. The main house, erected in the late 1840s, was no opulent antebellum dream with sweeping verandas and marble pillars. It was a sturdy, unassuming 2-story affair of oak beams and fieldstone foundation, dug deep into the red clay to defy the whims of settling earth. War had ravaged it, seized by Union forces as a makeshift supply depot, then reclaimed by distant kin after Appomattox. By 1876, it belonged to Vernon Harllo, a man in his early 50s whose body bore the war's cruel etchings, 3 fingers gone from his left hand, courtesy of a mini ball at Gettysburg, and a cough that rattled like loose chains in his chest, a persistent echo of pneumonia contracted in a Virginia prison camp. Vernon lived alone in that creaking house, save for 2 hired hands who tended the remnants of the fields. He was a specter of a man, his once sharp features dulled by loss, his eyes holding the vacant stare of someone who had seen hell and brought a peace back with him. Unmarried, childless, he ventured to Crossville monthly for provisions, exchanging curt nods with merchants who whispered of his war-broken soul. He attended the white-clapboard church sporadically, slipping into the rear pew like a shadow, departing before the hymns faded, evading Reverend Godfrey Hayes's earnest invitations to fellowship. The Reverend, a kindly soul with a Bible-worn voice, sensed in Vernon a spiritual wound deeper than flesh, a guilt unspoken, perhaps, or a sin unconfessed, lingering like smoke from a doused fire. In the biblical sense, Vernon embodied the parable of the sower, seeds cast on rocky ground, yielding no fruit, his life a barren field under heaven's indifferent gaze. His hired men, Samuel Pitts and Jeremiah Cole, were freedmen who had chosen to stay in the shadow of their former bondage rather than risk the unknown. Samuel, in his 30s, was built like the oaks that framed the property, strong, unyielding, with calloused hands that spoke of endurance. Jeremiah, nearing 50, carried a limp from an overseer's whip in his youth, his gray-streaked hair a crown of quiet wisdom. Both had defied the old laws, learning letters in secret midnight sessions, and they found solace at the colored church in Freeman's Ridge, 8 miles north, where sermons thundered of Exodus and divine deliverance. Vernon spoke to them sparingly, issuing commands with a fairness that bordered on detachment. They preferred it to the venomous chatter of other employers. In this uneasy truce, the estate persisted, a microcosm of the South's fractured soul, master and men bound by necessity, haunted by the ghosts of chains and cannon fire. But divine providence, or perhaps retribution, has a way of unearthing what men bury. It began innocuously, as such revelations often do. Vernon noticed the southeastern corner of the house sagging, the floorboards inside tilting like a ship listing in a storm. Cracks spiderwebbed across the wood, and from outside, the foundation stones gaped like a wound, water's winter freeze having pried them apart. To ignore it was to court ruin. A collapsed wall could doom the entire structure, symbolizing perhaps the fragility of a life built on unstable ground. Vernon, ever pragmatic despite his inner voids, hired 3 masons from Crossville: Thomas Yates, a grizzled veteran of 15 years mending the earth's betrayals, William Drury, his steadfast partner with a lantern-sharp eye, and young Elias Penn, 20 and green as spring grass, eager to prove his mettle in the trade. They arrived on the morning of April 14, 1876, under a sky bruised with impending rain, their wagon laden with chisels, beams, and mortar sacks. The air buzzed with the hum of awakening insects, the distant low of cattle mingling with the rustle of leaves. Vernon outlined the task: shore up the corner, replace the stones, reinforce against future assaults. 4 or 5 days, he reckoned, his cough punctuating the estimate like ominous punctuation. But fate, that capricious architect, had other plans. Within 3 hours, the mundane unraveled into the macabre. Thomas Yates crawled first into the crawlspace, his broad shoulders scraping the joists, the damp earth clinging to his knees like sins to a soul. He knew foundations intimately, their secrets, their lies. This one lied profoundly. The space yawned inward far beyond the house's blueprint, defying logic. In the feeble light seeping through the gap, he discerned not mere void but structure, brick walls laid with meticulous care, a corridor burrowing deeper, its packed earth floor hard as judgment stone. A chill slithered up his spine, unrelated to the cool air, a primal dread, as if he'd stumbled upon a tomb not meant for the living. "William," he hissed, voice echoing oddly in the confined dark, "fetch the lantern. Quick now." William squeezed in, the oil lamp's flame dancing shadows across the bricks, revealing the corridor's full insidious length, 15 feet to a wider chamber, hints of arches and supports suggesting deliberate design. "What in the Lord's name is this?" William breathed, his words frosting in the stale air. Thomas's mind raced, no cellar on record, no mention in deeds. This was hidden architecture, a subterranean secret buried like forbidden knowledge in ancient scrolls. "Mr. Harllo!" William called, scrambling out, dirt smearing his face like war paint. "You gotta see this, there's a whole room under here." Vernon approached with his labored gait, each step a negotiation with his battered lungs. His face, already etched with perpetual weariness, drained further at their words. "Impossible," he muttered, but his eyes betrayed a flicker, recognition? Fear? "The house sits on a plain foundation. No basements, no nothing." Yet the evidence mocked him. Samuel and Jeremiah, drawn from the fields by the raised voices, hovered at the periphery, their expressions a mix of curiosity and unease. Young Elias leaned on a post, wide-eyed, the scene unfolding like a biblical tableau, laborers confronting the unknown, a landowner facing judgment. "Hand me a lamp," Vernon commanded, his tone flat as beaten metal. Samuel cautioned, "Might be vipers down there, sir, or the walls could give." But Vernon, driven by some inner compulsion, knelt and crawled in, the light swallowed by them all. The men above waited in taut silence, the only sounds the drip of moisture and the distant call of a crow, harbinger of ill omens. Thomas consulted his pocket watch, 3 minutes stretched to 5, then 7. "Mr. Harllo," he ventured. No reply. William shifted uneasily. Then, piercing the hush, a sound that froze blood, a child's voice, high and ethereal, uttering words in a tongue alien yet hauntingly familiar, perhaps German laced with French cadences, or some Creole dialect born of isolation. It carried the innocence of prayer, twisted by desperation. Vernon burst out, head grazing a beam with a thud he ignored, his face a mask of pallid shock, lantern trembling like a soul in torment. "Children," he gasped, voice cracking. "There are children down there, living, breathing children." The words hung in the air, defying comprehension, evoking visions of biblical plagues or divine tests, innocence concealed in the earth's womb, a modern pharaoh's hidden decree. Chaos ensued, but not the frantic kind, rather, a deliberate unraveling, men grappling with the profane while clinging to reason's frayed rope. Thomas urged fetching the sheriff, his mason's pragmatism demanding order. William nodded, but Vernon halted them, his voice summoning an unexpected command, like Moses parting waters. "No authorities yet, they'd scare 'em worse. These young ones need gentle hands. Samuel, Jeremiah, you're slighter built, less imposing. Come with me, they might take to you kinder." The freedmen exchanged wary glances. Vernon's sudden authority rang false, laced with something unspoken, but duty compelled them. "Elias," Vernon continued, "ride to town for Dr. Marcus Webb. Tell him malnourished children, urgent care needed. No one else hears a word." Elias hesitated, sensing the gravity, but spurred his horse into a gallop, dust rising like incense from a sacrificial altar. Vernon, Samuel, and Jeremiah descended with lanterns, their lights piercing the gloom like seeking eyes of providence. Above, Thomas and William strained to hear Vernon's murmurs steady as scripture, Jeremiah's soothing as a psalm, Samuel's exclamations soft gasps of horror. An hour dragged, eternity in miniature, until the first child emerged, a girl of perhaps 10, her dark hair matted like tangled thorns, skin translucent as parchment, veined with blue shadows. She blinked against the sun's assault, arm raised like a supplicant warding off divine light, her dress a filthy shroud, feet calloused as a pilgrim's after endless wandering. She babbled in that enigmatic language, urgent pleas or incantations, her eyes pools of shadowed terror. Vernon followed, clasping her hand, his expression a storm of horror and profound sorrow, as if gazing upon his own damned reflection. 6 more, he whispered. Easy now, they're skittish as fawns. One by one, they ascended from the abyss, 2 boys, 5 girls, ages 5 to 13, clinging like vines in a tempest, their frames skeletal, eyes cavernous with unspoken suffering. Their language wove a tapestry of isolation, a babel born of captivity, evoking the tower's curse, humanity divided by walls not of stone but secrecy. Dr. Webb arrived as the last child, a boy with a clubfoot, symbol of affliction like Jacob's limp, was hoisted into daylight. The doctor, 60s with mud chops white as purity's robe, halted his buggy, transfixed by the tableau, children huddled like lost lambs, men arrayed in stunned vigil. Merciful Father, he murmured, descending. What abomination is this? Vernon, voice laced with exhaustion's gravel, replied, I swear by all that's holy, doctor, I knew nothing of it. Webb's examinations unfolded in the yard, his touch gentle as a healer's prayer, malnutrition's ravages evident in swollen joints, scurvy sores, muscles atrophied from confinement, skins pallid as those denied God's Son. A miracle they're breathing, he intoned, yet their spirits, what torments have scarred them? Someone built that lair, Webb pressed, entombed them like Jonah in the whale, for what purpose? Divine justice demands answers. Vernon shook his head, gaze distant as if peering into his soul's abyss. My uncle owned this before the war, died in 64. I took it post-surrender, 11 years blind to this horror. The children clustered on the porch steps, the eldest girl, later named Annalisa, whispering urgently to her kin, her tones a litany of protection, eyes flashing with a wisdom beyond years. In her, one sensed a guardian spirit, burdened with secrets that could unravel empires or condemn souls. But beneath the surface revelations stirred deeper currents, spiritual undercurrents that whispered of sin's long shadow. Was this chamber a relic of wartime desperation, hiding innocence from raiders? Or something darker, a slaver's secret hold, persisting post-emancipation as a monument to human depravity? The Bible speaks of hidden sins surfacing, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8 verse 17. Vernon's pallor suggested personal entanglement, a familial curse like Cain's mark, divine retribution for ancestral wrongs. The children's pale faces evoked ghosts of the oppressed, their unknown tongue a cry for redemption, echoing the Psalms, out of the depths I cry to you, Lord, 130:1. As the sun climbed, casting long shadows across the yard, the men pondered the chamber's construction, bricks laid pre-war, perhaps, during the house's building, concealed by cunning design. Tools abandoned below hinted at recent maintenance, a rusted pail, scraps of cloth, suggesting a keeper's visits. Who fed them? Schooled them in that cryptic speech? The air down there reeked of stagnation, mingled with faint traces of bread and herbs, sustenance meager as manna in the wilderness. Samuel, drawing from his own chain's memory, felt a kinship. These babes been in Egypt too long, he murmured. To Jeremiah, who nodded, eyes misting. Pharaoh's work, but the Lord parts seas eventually. Thomas, pragmatic soul, sketched the chamber mentally, corridor 10 feet wide, chamber beyond 20 by 15, low ceiling brushing heads, air thick with earth's breath. Lanterns had revealed crude pallets of straw, a trickle of water from a seep, providential or engineered? Symbols scratched on walls, crosses inverted, circles with runes, hinting at occult influences or desperate faith. Were these children wards of a mad visionary, hidden from society's gaze? Or victims of trafficking, smuggled from Europe's shores during the famine years, entombed for unspeakable purposes? Elias returned empty-handed. No, wait, he'd gone for the doctor, but whispers of summoning authorities grew. Vernon resisted, his cough worsening as if guilt choked him. Let Em adjust to light first, souls can't bear sudden glory. Biblical undertones laced his words, evoking Plato's cave or Paul's blinding on Damascus Road. The children, adapting slowly, reached for sunbeams like forbidden fruit, their fingers trembling. Annalisa, emerging as leader, gestured for water, her eyes locking on Vernon's with accusation or plea hard to discern. Dr. Webb administered broth, his voice a balm. Easy, little ones, you're safe under heaven now. But safety felt illusory, the estate pulsed with unease, winds whispering through oaks like judgmental angels. Jeremiah, drawing from spiritual sung in Freeman's Ridge, hummed softly, swing low, sweet chariot, calming the youngest boy whose twisted foot evoked biblical lameness healed by faith. Samuel pondered justice, whoever did this answers to a higher court. As afternoon waned, golden light bathing the scene in ethereal glow, questions multiplied. The chamber's depth suggested pre-planning. Perhaps Vernon's uncle, a rumored abolitionist with Union sympathies, had built it as an underground railroad stop, but war's chaos left children stranded? Or darker, rumors of local cults, blending Christianity with pagan rites, seeking purity through isolation. Spiritual symbolism abounded, 7 children, like the 7 churches of Revelation, messengers of apocalypse or redemption. Their pallor mirrored sin's drain on the soul, sunlight's denial a metaphor for grace withheld. Vernon, retreating to the porch, stared at the horizon, his missing fingers twitching phantom pains. Did he truly know nothing, or was this his penance, living atop buried iniquity, ignorant or complicit? The Bible warns, the sins of the fathers are visited upon the children, Exodus 20 verse 5, a generational curse unfolding. Thomas, sensing the moral weight, prayed silently, Lord, reveal the truth, lest darkness prevail. The children, voices softening to whimpers, huddled closer, Annalisa's urgent tones weaving a protective spell. What tales did she guard? What horrors etched in their young minds? As dusk approached, fireflies flickering like souls unbound, the Harllo estate transformed, from mere homestead to vessel of mystery, where earthly secrets intersected divine reckoning. This was no mere discovery, it was an unearthing of humanity's underbelly, a call to confront the shadows within. And in that confrontation lay the potential for redemption or eternal haunting. As the sun dipped toward the horizon on that fateful April day in 1876, casting elongated shadows across the Harllo estate like accusing fingers from the heavens, the group of men stood in stunned vigil around the rescued children. The air thickened with the scent of stirred earth and faint, acrid traces of confinement, damp straw mingled with unwashed fear. The children, 7 fragile vessels of mystery, clustered on the weathered porch steps, their pale forms huddled as if bracing against an invisible storm. The eldest girl, whom they would come to know as Annalisa, cradled the youngest boy in her lap, his clubfoot twisted like a biblical affliction, a mark perhaps of inherited sin or divine testing. Her gestures were fierce yet tender, a mother's instinct in a child's body, her dark eyes scanning the men with the wariness of a cornered deer. She murmured to the others in that enigmatic tongue, a melodic yet alien cadence that evoked ancient psalms corrupted by isolation, words rising and falling like incantations, soothing the whimpers of the smaller ones even as her own frame trembled. What manner of speech is that? William Drury whispered, his voice laced with unease, as if the words themselves carried a curse. Dr. Marcus Webb, kneeling gently before them, tilted his head, his white whiskers catching the fading light like frost on a grave marker. German, or akin to it, he replied softly, his tone measured like a preacher deciphering scripture. Echoes of Pennsylvania Dutch, those hardy settlers who fled Europe's persecution centuries ago, preserving dialects frozen in time. But there's a twist, French inflections weaving through, perhaps from Huguenot bloodlines scattered in the South before the Revolution. It's old, archaic, almost biblical in its purity, untouched by the world's babble. Samuel Pitts, standing a respectful distance back, crossed his arms, his strong frame a pillar of quiet strength. Or something darker, he murmured, his eyes shadowed by memories of chains and spirituals sung in hidden groves. Like tongues spoken in secret, heightened from judgment. Vernon Harllo, his cough rattling like loose stones in a tomb, disappeared into the house momentarily, emerging with woolen blankets frayed at the edges, a loaf of coarse bread still warm from the morning's bake, and a tin pitcher sloshing with well water that gleamed like liquid silver in the twilight. The children, upon sighting the food, surged forward with a primal hunger that pierced the soul, tiny hands clawing at the bread, tearing chunks with desperate fervor, crumbs scattering like offerings to forgotten gods. Their eyes, wide and hollow, reflected a starvation not just of body but of spirit, evoking the famine of Egypt or the wilderness wanderings where manna fell from heaven. Dr. Webb intervened with paternal grace, his hands gesturing slowly, palms open like a benediction, to slow them. Through mimics and soft tones, he conveyed the peril of gluttony after famine, lest their frail systems rebel like the Israelites grumbling against Moses. "We must venture below," Thomas Yates declared, his mason's resolve cutting through the haze, his lantern held aloft like a torch in a catacomb. "To behold the full measure of this iniquity." Vernon nodded, his face a mask of reluctant acquiescence, as if descending meant confronting his own buried demons. With the children secured above, wrapped in blankets against the encroaching chill, the men filed into the foundation's gap, Vernon leading, followed by Thomas, William, Samuel, Jeremiah, and Dr. Webb. The crawl was a purgatorial passage, knees grinding into cold dirt, shoulders brushing joists that creaked like judgmental bones, lanterns casting erratic shadows that danced like restless spirits on the brick walls. The air grew thicker, a miasma of must and decay that clung to skin and soul, whispering of sins long concealed. The corridor widened into a chamber, 20 feet long by 15 wide, its ceiling low enough to force a humble stoop, a forced humility before the architecture of secrecy. Bricks aligned with unholy precision, mortar seamless as if laid by a craftsman's hand guided by darker ambitions, formed walls that absorbed light rather than reflected it. This was no hasty burrow, it was a deliberate vault, engineered with the foresight of Noah's Ark but inverted, a shelter not from flood but from the light of divine scrutiny. Furnishings sparse yet telling, 7 straw pallets lined one wall, their stuffing compressed to papery thinness by years of unrelenting weight, covered in blankets threadbare as a beggar's shroud. Wooden crates doubled as altars and repositories, bearing tin plates dented from countless meals, cups rimmed with the ghosts of lips, and toys carved with crude devotion, a cloth-faced doll with button eyes staring blankly, a spinning top worn smooth by tiny fingers, animal figurines whittled from oak, symbols perhaps of a lost Eden. In a shadowed corner, a lidded bucket emanated a foul odor that assaulted the senses like the stench of Gehenna, William retching and averting his gaze as if witnessing profanity. Yet amid the grimness, an order prevailed, a caretaker's touch that blurred the line between captivity and cruel mercy. Charcoal etchings adorned one wall, simplistic renderings of figures in communion, houses with steepled roofs evoking distant churches, trees branching like the tree of life, and suns, oh, the suns, repeated obsessively, rays bursting forth in desperate radiance, as if the artists yearned to summon light into their abyss. They sketched their longings, Dr. Webb murmured, tracing a finger over a drawing, his voice reverent as if reading from Revelation. Memories faded or tales whispered, a steeple piercing the sky like a prayer, a wagon rolling toward freedom. These are cries from the depths, psalms in picture form, let there be light, but denied. Books lay scattered, 3 volumes battered by fervent handling. Covers peeling like shed skins. Dr. Webb lifted one gingerly, pages yellowed as ancient parchment, squinting in the flickering lamplight. German script, he confirmed, a children's Bible, tales of creation, flood, Exodus. This one's a primer for letters, etched with moral fables. Someone schooled them in scripture, planting seeds of faith in this barren soil. Samuel's jaw tightened, his voice a low rumble, educatin or ensnarin? Words of God twisted to chain the spirit. Jeremiah nodded grimly, his limp foot scraping the earth like a reminder of his own trials. Thomas, ever the seeker, discovered a concealed panel in the corner, sliding it aside to reveal a narrow shaft ascending like Jacob's ladder inverted, leading straight to the pantry floor above. "Here's the providence," he said, lantern illuminating the chute. Food lowered like offerings, water poured as libations. The keeper played God from on high, never descending to face the eyes below. Vernon stood at the chamber's heart, pivoting slowly, his missing fingers clenching as if grasping at elusive truths. His expression was inscrutable, a veil over inner turmoil. "Mr. Harllo," Dr. Webb pressed gently yet firmly, like a confessor, "by all that's holy, did you know of this sanctum?" Vernon's denial came swift, "I swear upon the cross, no." But Thomas detected a tremor, a shadow crossing his features like doubt in a believer's soul. "Yet someone architected this," Thomas countered. "Nurtured it, sustained these lambs for years, judging by their frailty, a decade or more." Vernon closed his eyes, as if invoking memory's ghosts. "My uncle, Benjamin Harllo, held this land from 1847 till his inn in 64 at Fisher's Hill. I witnessed his fall, cannon fire claiming him amid Virginia's chaos. He dwelt alone, save a housekeeper, Ruth, a free woman of color who fled when Union boots thundered through in '63. Workers tilled the fields, slaves turned freedmen, but none shared the house's secrets. Samuel knelt by a pallet, fingers probing the straw. Ancient as Pharaoh's tombs, these beds bear the weight of ages. Jeremiah extrapolated, since before Benjamin's demise, then 12 years minimum. The eldest scarce 13, infants thrust into this Sheol. The revelation descended like a shroud, suffocating, generations entombed, innocence interred alive. Dr. Webb's resolve hardened, authorities must be summoned, the sheriff to unearth truths, healers for these wounded spirits. I'll ferry 3 in my buggy, arrange wagons for the rest. Vernon queried softly, and what fate awaits them? Scattered like seeds on thorny ground? Dr. Webb had no parable ready, only the grim practicality of justice. Emerging into twilight's embrace, the men found the children tighter knit, Annalisa's arms encircling them like a protective covenant. Her gaze burned with feral guardianship, sensing separation's threat. They fear the parting of ways, Dr. Webb observed, like sheep from the fold. Hooves thundered then, heralding Sheriff Marcus Trent and Deputy Owen Clark. Elias's loose tongue in town birthing rumors that spread like wildfire through Crossville's whispers. Trent, burly with a mustache thick as brambles, dismounted heavily, his war-weary eyes widening at the spectral children. By the Almighty, he growled, what devilry unfolds here? Dr. Webb recounted the saga, the cracked foundation unveiling the crypt, children ascending from perdition, their sustenance a mystery. Trent's countenance darkened like storm clouds over Sinai. Turning to Vernon, you'll accompany us, Harllo. Questions demand answers. Vernon acquiesced quietly, but Trent pressed, survival ain't sorcery, who provisioned them? Vernon's reiteration, I know not, carried a hitch, a falter revoking Judas's denial, stirring Thomas's suspicions of deeper complicity. The sheriff's probe ignited forthwith, a 3-week odyssey of dogged pursuit, Trent a bloodhound on sin's scent. Yet barriers rose, tangible and ethereal, walls like Jericho's unyielding. The children found haven at widow Eleanor Pruitt's boarding house, a sturdy Crossville edifice where kindness flowed like balm from Gilead. Pruitt, matronly with discreet grace, allotted them upstairs chambers, soft beds with linens crisp as fresh snow, meals meted gradually to mend ravaged innards. Communication faltered, Annalisa's dialect a bastion, archaic German infused with French ghosts, impenetrable as the veil between worlds. Younger ones absorbed English fragments like sponges, but Annalisa stood sentinel, vetting examinations, sampling sustenance first, patrolling beds at night like a watchman on ramparts, soothing night terrors with hushed lullabies. Dr. Webb labored for trust, proffering confections, sugar's novelty eliciting wide-eyed awe, hearts breaking at their innocent rapture. Picture books unveiled wonders, skies vast as promises, fields blooming with redemption's hope. Patience prevailed. After 5 days, Annalisa confided, through fractured German, sketches on slate, gestures laden with pain. Taken to darkness in infancy, no pre-chamber recollections save dream fog of light and expanse. A woman to taunt, aunt tended them, nourisher, teacher from the German Bible, storyteller of parables, singer of hymns echoing like echoes in a well. Where abides she now? Webb inquired. Annalisa's visage shuddered, a fortress sealed. Dead? A shake. Alive? A nod, reluctant. Her whereabouts? Eyes ancient with betrayal, refusal absolute, a vow unspoken. The littlest knew not beyond the crypt, sky's infinity terrified, wind's whisper haunted, birdsong a cacophony of alarm. Rain's patter drove them to corners, inconsolable as if reliving Noah's deluge without ark. Trent summoned Harrison Church, Knoxville builder, to dissect the chamber. Church delved a day entire, measuring bricks' alignment, mortar's age. Verdict, constructed 1840 as 50s, integral to the house, chimney bricks kin, foundation seamless. Premeditated from Genesis, Church declared. No afterthought, the architect wove secrecy into the blueprint. Benjamin Harllo commissioned in 47, importing Knoxville crews, compensating lavishly, dispatching swiftly. Locals finished surfaces, but core foundation, frame harbored the void. Spiritual threads wove through the chamber a modern Hades, children Persephone's stolen from spring. Taunts role angel or fallen? Bible teachings, light in darkness, yet confinement mocked freedom's gospel. Annalisa's protectiveness mirrored Ruth's devotion or Mary's vigil. Vernon's hesitations hinted at familial curse, sins of fathers cascading like original transgression. Sons drawn, yearnings for revelation, divine light-piercing shadows. Shaft, manna's mockery, sustenance without Savior's face. 7 children, completeness in scripture, or seals of apocalypse? As weeks unfolded, estate winds carried omens, crows circling like accusers, dogwoods blooming blood-red. Pruitt reported nocturnal cries, pleas in German licht, light echoes of "Let my people go." Webb pondered redemption, could these emerge transformed, like Lazarus? Or bear eternal scars, witnesses to humanity's abyss? Trent's frustrations mounted, leads evaporated like mist, community whispers of curses on Harllo blood. Samuel and Jeremiah, in Freeman's Ridge Church, prayed for justice exodus fulfilled. Thomas sketched maps, pondering escapes untaken. Deeper probes revealed chamber anomalies, wall scratches tallying days, like prisoner's calendar thousands, a lifetime sentence. Toys inscribed with runes, perhaps protective charms or occult wards. Books margins annotated in faded ink, verses underlined, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, twisted consolation. Vernon, questioned in Crossville's dim cell, maintained ignorance, but coughs betrayed inner torment, perhaps guilt's phlegm. Annalisa, in rare candor, drew taunt, stern visage, cross necklace, guardian or jailer? Refused elaboration, as if betraying equal damnation. Youngest boy's foot, untreated, symbol of neglect or test of faith? Healers mused surgery, but spiritual healing first, baptism proposed, washing away captivity's stain. Estate stood sentinel, foundation patched yet scarred, like souls mended but marked. Nightfalls brought apparitions, lanterns flickering below, illusions or ghosts? Locals shunned the road, deeming it accursed ground. Divine retribution? Benjamin's war death, judgment for hidden sins? Vernon pondered inheritance's weight, property and curse entwined. Investigation's web expanded, queries to distant kin, searches for missing children reports pre-war. Whispers of immigrant ships, orphans vanishing en route. French-German fusion, Acadian exiles? Moravian settlers? Spiritual chilling, chamber as inverted Eden, knowledge forbidden, innocence preserved yet poisoned. As May dawned, hope flickered, Annalisa hummed a melody, hymn of deliverance. Yet shadows lingered, truths buried deeper, awaiting unearthly light. As the weeks dragged on in that sweltering Tennessee spring of 1876, the Harllo estate loomed like a forsaken temple amid the verdant hills of Cumberland County, its once sturdy facade now etched with the invisible cracks of unearthed secrets. The air carried the heavy perfume of blooming wisteria and honeysuckle, masking the faint, lingering rot from the opened foundation, a sensory reminder that beauty often cloaks decay. Sheriff Marcus Trent, his mustache bristling like thorns on a crown, pursued the investigation with the dogged persistence of a biblical seeker, his office in Crossville a dimly lit sanctuary cluttered with maps, faded deeds, and witness statements scrawled in hasty ink. The walls seemed to close in, echoing the confined chamber below the house, as if the estate's shadows had followed him into town. Each lead unraveled like frayed scripture, revealing fragments of a larger, more profane gospel, a tale of isolation, fanaticism, and the perilous line where faith morphs into folly. Trent's first thrust was into the house's genesis, summoning records from Knoxville's archives, yellowed blueprints and contracts that whispered of premeditated concealment. Benjamin Harllo had commissioned the structure in 1847, importing crews from afar, masons with calloused hands and distant gazes, paid handsomely to dig deeper than custom demanded. The sheriff tracked survivors, but time had claimed most like a reaper's harvest, graves scattered across the South, memories eroded by age. One ancient craftsman, now 70 and withered in Memphis, his voice a raspy wheeze like wine through cracked tombs, recalled the job through spectacles fogged by cataracts. Mr. Harllo insisted on a foundation like none other, he croaked, fingers trembling as they traced invisible lines in the air. Dug out earth till we hit bedrock, deeper than for any barn or mansion. Paid extra coin, so we questioned not. Thought him eccentric, perhaps fearing floods like Noah's deluge, but now, Lord have mercy. The words hung heavy, evoking biblical floods not of water but of human hubris, a ark inverted into a crypt. Interviews with Benjamin's acquaintances painted a portrait of solitude wrapped in piety, a man reserved as a monk, attending church with bowed head but shunning fellowship's warmth. He had returned from the Mexican War in the late 1840s, altered, eyes haunted by desert skirmishes, spirit withdrawn like a hermit in the wilderness. Whispers of oddity abounded, never wed, no kin claimed, his life a barren vineyard yielding no fruit. Children? Trent pressed, his tone sharp as a prophet's rebuke. None knew. If illegitimate offspring from enslaved women existed, it blended into the era's shadowed norms, unrecorded as forgotten psalms. Yet no rumors stirred, no scandals echo Benjamin's existence a blank scroll, save for his devotion to an unseen divine. Then, the thread of Ruth emerged, a free woman of color whose name evoked the biblical faithful companion, loyal amid exile. Witnesses recalled her, tall and poised, her skin the hue of polished mahogany, eyes holding depths of unspoken trials. She had served as housekeeper, a rarity in pre-war South, her presence a quiet anomaly. Spoke German, she did, one elderly market vendor confided, her wrinkled hands clutching a shawl like a talisman. Heard her humming in the stalls, clear as cathedral bells, foreign words lilting like old hymns. Asked once, said Pennsylvania Germans raised her, folks fleeing old world's chains. Trent's pulse quickened, a revelation like manna, German tongue linking housekeeper to the children's cryptic dialect, a bridge across the abyss. Ruth had vanished in 1863's Union advance, slipping away like a ghost in the night, her loyalty to Benjamin unbroken until war's chaos forced flight. The puzzle gnawed at Trent, nights spent poring over lanterns flicker, his mind a storm of hypotheticals, Ruth as guardian, chamber as sanctuary or prison? Spiritual symbolism loomed. 7 children, number of divine completeness, hidden like the sealed servants in Revelation, preserved from world's corruption. Was this a twisted eschatology, apocalypse anticipated in Tennessee's clay? Doubts festered, justice demanding answers, yet leads evaporated like morning mist over the Cumberland Plateau. 3 weeks post-discovery, Providence intervened. Josiah Clark, a freedman in his 50s, his frame bent from years of toil but spirit unbowed, approached Trent's office on a Monday dawn. Hat clutched in scarred hands, sweat beading on his brow despite the cool air, he embodied the hesitant witness, eyes darting like those of the Israelites spying Canaan. Heard 'bout them young ones, he murmured, voice gravelly as plowed earth. Got something to share, but swear on the good book it won't lash back on me or mine. Trent weighed the plea, his badge a symbol of earthly authority tempered by mercy. No crimes confessed mean no fears, he assured, gesturing to a chair worn smooth by confessions. Josiah unfolded his tale like a sacred scroll. In 49 or 50, Benjamin journeyed north to Pennsylvania on business, absent 3 moons. Returned with Ruth, free, guarded, eyes shadowed by unseen pursuers. Hidin' from something fierce, Josiah whispered. Built that house round her, but not as wife, more sentinel over a secret flame. Nights brought eerie vigils, lamplight seeping from windows like forbidden knowledge, German lullabies drifting on breezes, children's songs evoking hidden cherubs. Never saw no babes, he emphasized, but heard 'em in the wind, like angels unseen. The main house forbidden to workers, a tabernacle veiled. When Union bluecoats stormed in 63, Ruth fled under cover of darkness. Benjamin, enlisted in 62, left the estate a hollow shell for 2 years until Vernon's post-war claim. Did Vernon know? Trent probed, leaning forward, the room thick with tension. Josiah paused, gaze distant as if peering into judgment's veil. Can't say true, Sheriff. But a year back, moonlit night, saw a woman skulkin' from Harllo land, dark garb, hasty steps toward town. Glimpse only, but swore it was Ruth, aged but unmistakable. No words exchanged, she vanished like a specter. Trent's mind raced. Ruth returned? Sustaining the entombed? A phantom caretaker, faithful as Ruth of Moab, bound by vows deeper than blood. Post-interview, Trent brooded in solitude, piecing shards, chamber birthed in 47, Ruth arriving 49 to 50, children German-clad in isolation. A sighting recent, caretaker persisting post-war? Gaps yawned like chasms, origins, parentage, purpose. If Ruth nurtured till 63, who bridged the void? Vernon loomed as key, his cooperation a facade over guarded depths, like a Pharisee hiding heart's truth. May 7, 1876, 3 weeks and 4 days since the unearthing, Trent rode solo to the estate as sunset bled orange and purple across the sky, a canvas of apocalyptic hues evoking end-times prophecies. Crickets chirped vespers, and owls hooted a solemn omen, leaves rustling like turning pages of fate. Vernon perched on the porch, pipe smoke curling like incense, his form gaunt as a fasting prophet, eyes sunk in shadows of burden. "Sheriff," he greeted, voice resigned as Job's lament, "knew you'd come. Sit, if you will." Silence enveloped them, a sacred pause amid nature's chorus. "Truth entire, Vernon," Trent demanded, tone firm as Mosaic law. "Those lambs merit light." Vernon exhaled smoke, a sigh of surrender. "Aye, they do." Admission flowed, ignorant at inheritance in 65, a decade blind till 67's discovery, a letter in Benjamin's German Bible, translated by a Crossville scholar versed in tongues. Dated 62, from Ruth amid war's siege, children well, her care unwavering, fears of union ransack. Referred to as blessed ones, a sacred duty of protection loans. Long standing. When? Trent urged. June 67, Vernon confessed, eyes shuddering like sealed tombs. Ruth returned post-war on my door in night's cloak, pleading resumption of vigil. Revealed all. Heart-pounding, Trent queried, Ruth's whereabouts? Gone to glory 2 years past pneumonia's grip. Buried unmarked in Freeman's Ridge, colored ground, as she wished, humble as dust. The confession deepened. Benjamin's 49 Pennsylvania sojourn entwined him with preserved brethren, a sect shunning mainstream altars for purer rites, apocalyptic zealots foreseeing world's end in their span. Ruth, devotee at 20, embodied their creed, preserve a remnant pure souls sequestered from sin's taint, schooled in ancient ways for post-judgment rebirth. 7 infants/toddlers, yielded by believing kin, entrusted to Benjamin's isolation and means. Chamber crafted as womb of salvation, Ruth migrated to tend, educate via German Bible, nurture in shadows. Duration? Trent gasped, chill despite evening's warmth. Eternal, if needed, or till Armageddon's trumpet. Horror cascaded, parents surrendering offspring to earth's embrace, deeming it mercy against damnation's fire. Salvation inverted, Trent murmured, evoking Eden's fall, knowledge withheld, innocence imprisoned. Benjamin believed till war's carnage sowed doubt, letters post-62 hinted regret, but inertia bound them, children adapted to abyss, Ruth unswerving in conviction. Vernon's torment urged release, but Ruth pleaded outer world, a babble of cruelty, shattering psyches molded for purity. Convinced me gradual, he admitted, voice cracking like thunder's precursor. Kept them veiled, God forgive, fed via shaft, preserved their purpose. Judgment laced Trent's gaze, complicity in captivity, faith's facade over fear. Vernon bowed head, a penitent, burden crushed me, cough my penance, fingers lost a lesser wound. Spiritual undercurrents surged, brethren as false prophets, remnant a perversion of Romans elect. Children as lambs for slaughter, or seeds in fallow ground. Ruth's devotion, Mary Magdalene's fidelity, twisted. Benjamin's doubts, Saul's road to Damascus, too late. Vernon's hesitation, Peter's denial, thricefold. Estate pulsed with legacy, winds whispering indictments, dogwoods blooming as blood atonement. Josiah's sighting, Ruth's ghost, faithful till end. Trent pondered arrest, but mercy tempered Vernon's aid post-discovery, no malice evident. Children at Pruitt's thrived slowly, Annalisa teaching English fragments, eyes lighting at sunlight's kiss, yet nightmares plagued, cries forton echoing like lost souls. Dr. Webb noted progress, sugar's delight, books wonders, but scars eternal, pallor fading, spirits resilient as Job's restoration. Investigation's veil lifted partially, origins traced to Pennsylvania's misty valleys, sect dissolved in war's wake, parents perhaps perished or repentant. No charges immediate, moral court higher. Vernon, unburdened, coughed less, as if confession purged. Yet questions lingered, full parentage? Sect's texts? Chamber's walls bore more scratches, prayers etched, sons pleading for dawn. As night cloaked the porch, stars emerged like witnesses, Trent departed, mind awhirl with divine ironies. Harllo saga, cautionary parable, faith's double edge, salvation's pursuit birthing hell. Children. Emergent remnant, faced world's true apocalypse, freedom's blinding light. Redemption possible? Bible promised, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light, Isaiah 9 verse 2. But shadows clung, haunting legacies buried not deep enough. The porch boards creaked beneath their weight as full nights settled over the Harllo estate like a funeral shroud, stars piercing the sky like distant, indifferent witnesses. Vernon Harllo sat motionless, pipe forgotten in his hand, the ember dying to ash. Sheriff Marcus Trent felt the air thicken, each breath carrying the scent of wood smoke, damp clay, and something sharper, regret, perhaps, or the faint metallic tang of truth long withheld. Crickets sang their relentless psalm, an owl called once, mournful, as if mourning the souls still trapped below ground even though the chamber now stood empty. Yes, Vernon said at last, the word cracking like dry timber. Ruth kept tending them. I sent coin for bread, milk, blankets, whatever she asked through notes slipped under the pantry door. Told myself it was protection. Told myself the world outside would shatter them like glass under a boot. But the mirror don't lie, Sheriff. I was afraid. Afraid of the whispers in Crossville, the fingers pointed, the scandal staining my name, a Confederate veteran harboring, whatever this was. So I let the lie breathe. 9 years. 9 years I lowered baskets twice daily, listened for the soft scrape of their hands taking what I gave, and walked away pretending my hands were clean. His voice fractured on the last word. He rubbed his scarred knuckles, the missing fingers a permanent accusation. Then Ruth took ill. Pneumonia came quick in the winter of '74. She coughed blood in that little room off the kitchen where she slept when she stayed over. I buried her myself in Freeman's Ridge under moonlight, no stone, no name, just earth, and a prayer I didn't believe would reach heaven. After that, it was only me. I should have opened the trapdoor wide that very night. Brought lanterns, called names, carried them into daylight. But fear is a heavier chain than iron. I kept the routine. Food down the shaft. Water. A whispered good night they never answered. Told myself tomorrow I'd decide. Tomorrow never came. Trent leaned forward, elbows on knees, the weight of 48 hard years pressing into his spine. Those children lost everything: childhood, kin, the simple gift of open sky, because your uncle chased a fever dream of apocalypse, and you lacked the spine to end it. Vernon met his gaze without flinching. Yes. I know the bill's coming due. Silence stretched, thick as the darkness pooling around the house. Trent knew protocol demanded cuffs, a ride back to the courthouse cell under lantern light. Yet something held him, the recognition that Vernon was both jailer and prisoner, ensnared by legacy, cowardice, and a twisted compassion that had curdled into cruelty. The Bible spoke of such men: those who bury talents, hide light under bushels, reap what they sow in sorrow. What of the parents? Trent asked finally, voice low. The ones who handed over infants like offerings? Most likely dust, Vernon replied. The preserved brethren splintered in the 1850s. Cholera swept through their settlements like judgment. When the world refused to end on schedule, faith withered. Ruth said by the war's outbreak, no one even recalled the 7. No letters came. No visitors. They were orphans before they could walk. Trent exhaled slowly. Annalisa, she shielded Ruth's name like a shield. Wouldn't speak it. Was protecting you, wasn't she? A nod, slow and pained. Ruth taught them the outside held wolves. Keep silent, keep hidden, or the bad ones come. They believed her. Loved her. She was mother, teacher, light in their endless night. Kind in her fashion. Convinced, bone deep, she was saving their eternal souls from damnation. To them, she was saint and guardian. To the rest of us, something darker. Trent rose, joints protesting. You'll come with me, Vernon. Charges will be filed: unlawful confinement, endangerment, more. This ain't ordinary law. I know. Vernon stood too, tapping ash from his pipe with deliberate care, setting it on the railing like a final sacrament. One favor, Sheriff? Speak it. The children, what becomes of them? Trent hesitated. Dr. Webb believes they can heal. Young enough to learn the world anew. It'll be long, painful. They'll need families willing to walk through nightmares with them. In time, perhaps adoption. Perhaps truth, when they're ready to bear it. They deserve more than scraps, Vernon said quietly. Everything stolen. Sunlight. Laughter without echo. Names that aren't shadows. Yes, Trent agreed. They do. The story should have ignited like dry tinder across Tennessee and beyond, headlines screaming of children entombed by religious madness, a Confederate veteran's dark secret unearthed. Instead, it smoldered, then guttered out. Cumberland County in 1876 was a land stitching itself back together with barbed thread. Reconstruction's last threads unraveled, federal bluecoats withdrew, night riders in white hoods enforced a new order through terror. No one hungered for a tale that exposed fanaticism in their own soil, that painted a fallen soldier's kin as architect of horror, that forced mirrors to Southern faith and family. The Harllo case prickled consciences already raw. Better to let it fade. Local papers printed terse notices, children discovered in unusual circumstances, then silence. Out-of-town reporters met closed doors, forgotten appointments, sudden memory lapses. Records vanished into courthouse basements or were quietly misfiled. By July the whispers had stilled, by autumn the story was folklore, not news. Vernon's September trial unfolded in near-empty pews. He pled guilty to all counts: unlawful imprisonment, child endangerment, casting himself on mercy. His attorney painted a portrait of inherited burden, wartime wounds, provision despite peril. Judge Albert Stern, himself a graying Confederate veteran, listened stone-faced. Sentence: 3 years hard labor, suspended immediately in light of service to the Confederacy and cooperation. Vernon walked free, though freedom tasted like ash. Within weeks he sold the estate, pocketed what little remained, and vanished from ledgers. Some claimed he drifted west toward new horizons, others whispered he drowned his guilt in bottle after bottle until the cough finally claimed him. No grave marker bears his name. The children remained with Widow Pruitt through summer and fall, rooms filled with tentative miracles. Dr. Webb attended daily, teaching letters, coaxing smiles, watching them flinch at slammed doors, hoard crusts beneath pillows, wake screaming from dreams of walls closing in. Yet resilience bloomed. Annalisa devoured vocabulary like bread after famine, eyes alight at rainbows after storms. They tasted apples, felt grass between toes, marveled at fireflies like captive stars. Nightmares persisted, but so did curiosity, a hunger for the vastness denied them. By December, paths diverged. The three youngest, 2 boys and Margaret, found homes with vetted families nearby. Webb oversaw placements, visited monthly, ensured gentleness. The remaining 4, Annalisa among them, entered a Knoxville orphanage, clean, orderly, the matron briefed on trauma's long shadow. Webb continued monthly pilgrimages for 3 years, notes preserved in archives, progress reports, drawings of suns growing brighter, first English prayers. History swallows most traces. Records from the era are patchy, especially for the orphaned and adopted. Yet fragments endure. A Knox County marriage license, 1885, Anna Harllo, born Pennsylvania, wed James Vick, carpenter. Age 22, Annalisa's arithmetic. She claimed the Harllo name, perhaps as anchor to the only constancy she knew, perhaps because no other belonged to her. The 1890 census captures the Vick household in a solid Knoxville neighborhood: James 35, master carpenter, Anna 27, 3 children born free under open sky. If this was she carved a life, wife, mother, survivor. Sunlight on her children's faces. Laughter without echo of brick. The younger 6 scatter into obscurity. Names changed, past softened or silenced. They blended into Tennessee's fabric, carrying private scars, perhaps sharing fragments with spouses or offspring on quiet evenings. Their story, like theirs, became whispers. The Harllo house stood vacant, then razed. A farmer bought the land, leveled the structure, built anew elsewhere. The chambered bricks likely salvaged, space filled with red clay vanished beneath plowed fields. No trace remains but memory's stubborn root. Among old-timers, the tale lingers like smoke: children beneath the house, a woman of iron faith, a man too weak to break the spell. Children dared each other across the fields at dusk, swearing they heard German hymns on the wind. Legends bloomed: demons, angels, forbidden bloodlines, but truth cut deeper: 7 souls sacrificed to a delusion of salvation. Adults convinced darkness preserved purity better than light corrupted it. When revelation came, society recoiled. Too raw. Too indicting. Easier to forget than confront what piety can birth when twisted. In 2003, a modest historical marker rose beside Route 127, 6 miles southeast of Crossville. Bronze letters, brief. Near the site stood the Harllo estate. In 1876, 7 children were discovered living in a hidden chamber beneath the main house. Kept isolated from birth as part of a religious sect's apocalyptic beliefs, they were rescued and eventually integrated into society. One of Tennessee's most unusual child endangerment cases. It speaks little of Vernon's paralysis, Ruth's conviction, parental surrender, or the hush that followed. Yet it stands a quiet admission that horror walked this ground. Passers-by pause sometimes. Snap photographs. Drive on, unsettled. For those who dig old clippings, Webb's fading notes, census whispers, the full weight settles, 7 children spent youth and night because adults feared day more. Freed at last, they entered a world that preferred not to see them too clearly, that buried discomfort as surely as earth once buried them. This is no ghost tale. No urban legend. Documented. Real. In 1876 Tennessee, under a sky indifferent as ever, innocence was interred for salvation's sake. When exhumed, the light burned, but so did the silence that welcomed it. What lingers in your mind? Do you see redemption in their survival, or only the cost of belief gone mad? Are some secrets better left beneath the foundation? Share below. If these shadowed histories grip you, subscribe, ring the bell, pass this to another seeker of truth. More graves wait to be opened. More lights wait to be kindled. Until next time.